What's on, ladies and gentlemen? My name's Ross, I like games, and today we need to have a little bit of a look at the other two leaders. And this is where we peek behind the curtain a little bit, because basically, I've already shown you Luffy today. I showed you Luffy, I said there was an awkward rule inquiry regarding the skill and whether triggers activate and all of that. We looked at that, I'll link the video in the description. We don't need to worry about that today. Well, not anymore today anyway, and if you haven't seen it, go check out the video. When I made that video, Sabo and Ace had not been revealed. I couldn't tell you what they did. I couldn't show you. They hadn't been revealed. And then, of course, like the second that I uploaded the video, they got revealed. Of course they did. But I think I might have forgotten to say in all my excitement in my earlier video, happy Thanksgiving to all you lovely ladies and gentlemen over there in the US. I am, and I know this sounds cheesy, but it's true, I'm thankful for all of you guys. Because honestly, you guys watching my videos means I have a fun job that I really enjoy and I get to spend lots of time with my kids and just, have a much more fun life because of it. So thank you very much to all you lovely ladies and gentlemen. But we do have the other two new leaders, and we're going to start off with Sabo, because Sabo is ridiculous. Also, I think I checked with a Discord or someone on Facebook who posted from the Discord. With the translations on these, I did them myself, but the Ace is a little bit blurry. Just warning you there, alright? So, what we've got with Sabo here is, again, 5,000 power, 4 life, dual color, red and yellow, which incidentally means, and it's a revolutionary army, which means you're just going proper job side by side with Bello Betty here. And I love Bello Betty in OP05, but I gotta say, I think Sabo might be better. And what we've got is Dawn X1, activate main once per turn. You may add one of your cost 3 or higher characters with 7,000 power or higher to the top of your life face up, and then give one of your characters plus 2,000 power until the start of your next turn. And when I initially read this skill, I was waiting for the okay, but then you lose the life, or something along those lines. But no, literally every turn you can just add a character from your board to your life face up, which is absurd. Absolutely absurd. Now, as a side note here, because something is going on, we saw with the Luffy earlier, Luffy's got a skill that says your face-up life cards cannot be added to your hand. When they're taken, they go to the bottom of your deck instead. As far as I remember, and correct me in the comment section if I'm wrong here, we've not seen anything in terms of face-up life cards before. And yet we're now 2 for 2 leaders doing that. And that brings me to a very important point about all 3 of the leaders we've looked at today. We are missing a lot of information. We have only seen the leaders, we haven't seen the rest of the cards. Of course, a classic example here is one I've given many times before, Hody Jones. The Hody Jones leader has a fun skill that then says you cannot add cards from your life to your hand for the rest of your turn, which when we first saw the Hody Jones leader made no real sense, because at the time there were no green cards at all that added cards from your life to your hand. Those cards didn't exist. Well, we've since seen a bunch of cards, including a Hody Jones character, that have good skills, but then you've got to add the top card of your life to your hand. That made perfect sense. I mean, think back to Starter Deck 10 if you want another example. Again, that was a situation where we saw the leaders first. And we saw actually in Liverpool this past weekend at the tournament I casted, we saw the event was won by Luffy that says if you got 0 Don on your field or 8 or more, you add up to 1 Don card from your Don deck and set it as active. But there's a Eustace Captain Kidd in the deck, which has got a Don -1 skill that gives your leader an extra 1,000 power until the start of your next turn. But if you've got 10 Don, this goes from 10 to 9 when you use Kid's skill, and then you can use your leader skill to go back up to 10. There are going to be a bunch of things in the deck which make the leaders make more sense, and one of them, and I'm calling it now, and it really isn't a particularly clairvoyant prediction, it's pretty obvious, there are going to be some cards in this deck that interact with face-up life cards. There has to be, or else these leaders don't make anywhere near as much sense. And as another side note, there's no question like there was with Luffy earlier, there is nothing in the rules that suggests that face-up life cards don't activate trigger. The only important thing is that they go to your hand, and unlike with Luffy, they totally do here. So this is actually awesome, because the character that you take and then put on top of your life, face-up, will activate trigger when it comes out, which is kind of awesome. Now, it does have to be a 3 cost or higher character with 7,000 power or more. Now, if you take your average vanilla 3 cost as an example, that's going to have 5,000 power. Your ordinary, everyday, run-of-the-mill vanilla card will be 3 cost, 5,000 power, counter plus 1,000. We've seen this a million times before. We know that's the deal. Charlotte Praline would be a yellow example of that, for argument's sake. So you're going to need to bump these up a little bit. You might need, essentially, you're either going to be going for 5 or 6 cost characters most of the time, or you're going to be having to bump up the power of your characters, which is fine. Don cards exist. All right? So it's really not the end of the world. Essentially, you will have to put Don cards on them and then put them onto the top of your life face up. It's not a huge problem. Don cards are there for a reason. Just pointing out that's the way it's going to be. And honestly, giving one of your characters plus 2k until the start of your next turn, that's awesome because firstly, more attacking on your turn, secondly, more protection on your opponents, and yes, you can do this to bump up one of your blockers, and that would be amazing. Like, it's a yellow deck, you're probably going to be playing Sanji with the whole trigger thing here, where it comes out with trigger and then it's got blocker and that's all lovely. Well, you can bump up by 2k here. I'm not saying you have to play Sanji, I'm just saying Sanji sees a bunch of play in yellow decks. And honestly, this much life recovery is absurd. It's so much better than the other leaders we've seen. Like I was talking about in the Luffy deck earlier, or Luffy leader in the video earlier, this is phenomenal. And yet, fine, you do have to take characters off of your board, although you can attack with them first. They don't have to be active when you put them on top of your life. And sure, at some point you're going to run out of characters potentially. I don't care. I don't care. I actually love this with any character that's got rush. So like Charlotte Katakuri, and again, you'll need to bump up by 1k to do this, but you look at the top card of yours or your opponent's life and put it at the top or bottom. That's a nice skill. But if you're behind on life, you gain rush. You attack immediately. Then you use this skill to put Charlotte Katakuri on top of your life. And then if your opponent takes a life, Charlotte Katakuri comes back to your hand. And then you play down and rush and round we go. That sounds like fun. That sounds like an awful lot of fun. This leader looks absolutely nuts. This should be one of the best leaders we've had so far. It looks amazing. Sorry, Bello Betty. I think you might be old news. Now, as for Ace, it's not as exciting, but we do need to have a gander because it could still be quite good. We got a dual colour blue and yellow, and you are Whitebeard Pirates here, but bear in mind, we have some really good Whitebeard Pirates back in OPO2. You know, things like Edward Newgate, which has been restricted, and Jozu, which hasn't been restricted. Really good cards. Yeah, you can't play any of them. This is blue and yellow, probably by design. And what we've got here is Don X2, activate main once per turn, look at the top 5 cards of your deck, add up to 1 cost 5 character to the top of your life face up, then put the remaining cards at the bottom of your deck in any order. And then at the end of your turn, you send all face up cards in your life to the trash. So you get to put an extra card on top of your life and from your deck, so it doesn't have to be one that's on the board, doesn't have to be in your hand, so you don't lose cards in hand, you don't lose board position because it's coming off the top of your deck, which is awesome. But remember, they go to your trash, not to your hand, and you don't actually still have the life when it goes over to your opponent's turn. Also, as a side note, like we said with Luffy earlier, it is cost 5 character, not cost 5 or lower or any of that. It is exactly 5 cost. And look, 2 of these 3 leaders have skills that activate specifically with 5 cost characters. This goes back to what I was saying a minute ago. We can tell things about the cards in the starter deck from the skills of the leader. And yeah, there's going to be a bunch of 5 cost cards in starter deck 13. There has to be, because remember, these decks are designed to be played out of the box. It would be kind of dumb if they had leaders, 2 of whom really relied on 5 cost characters, and they put like 1 in there. That would be a bit silly. So what's the point of this leader? Skills that take your own life. Simple as that. The whole point of this leader is you play it with a bunch of those yellow cards that let you take a life into your hand, and then essentially you use this skill, grab a 5-cost character, put it on top of your life, but then you play a card which lets you put it into your hand before your turn ends, and the card otherwise goes to your trash. This doesn't look nearly as strong as Sabo, or even Luffy, to be honest with you, because it's very much you need a combo. This leader is really good if you've got a card that takes a life in your hand, you use a skill, hopefully you find a 5-cost character in the top 5 cards of your deck, because remember, that bit could fail, and then if you do, it goes on your life, and you take it, and then round him all good. Fine. Okay, brilliant. It's not perfect. I do think that's a fair point to make here. This is really not perfect. And obviously it's going to make some cards way better. So for instance, take Thunderbolt. Brilliant event card. As a trigger, KO one of your opponent's characters, cost 5 or less. Yes. But if it's not coming out as a trigger, you've got to pay 2. And then you've got to trash a card from the top of your life, which makes the card so much worse. But the whole point here is you put any card on top of your life, and then you trash it, and all of a sudden, Thunderbolt becomes a much better card. Or take something like the Sanji from OP03, another example of a card that gets way better here, because it's 2-cost counter plus 2000, Don X2 when attacking, you can add a card from the top or bottom of your life to your hand, and then you add up to 1 card from the top of your deck to the top of your life. So here, essentially what you do is you use Ace, you put a card face up on top of your life, take it with Sanji, and then you put a card from the top of your deck on top of your life, which could have a trigger, but more importantly, it is face down, so it doesn't get trashed at the end of your turn, and then essentially these 2 cards together mean you've been able to cherry pick a 5-cost character from the top 5 cards of your deck, and you're ending your turn with 1 more life card than you began. Like I say, this is a leader where it's going to be all combo based. The skill on its own is pretty trash. But there are a bunch of cards we've seen, and I've given you a couple of examples, which will make this a much, much better skill, as opposed to Sabo, which is just ridiculous. Hey, do you want to gain a life every turn and then bump up one of your characters by 2k? Yeah. Although again, if you're using Sabo, you will end up kind of replaying the same characters over and over, not necessarily building your board, but you are getting an extra life every turn. I'm sure you'll get over it. Right, that's all 3 leaders from Starter Deck 13. Now it's over to you guys. I think I've been pretty clear that I love Sabo, and Sabo's my favourite, but I want to know what you think. So let me know in the comment section, would you? Go nuts! Be nice! And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at TheWasi. That's where we talk about One Piece and a bunch of other card games. And please do consider checking out patreon.com/PTCG Radio, where you can support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all kinds of fun things. But by far the most important thing as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching Wasi Plays.